You've probably heard that homeownership is a significant part of the quote-unquote American dream. While many believe that owning a home is still a worthy goal, most Americans say it's increasingly unattainable. A 2024 Harris poll found that 81% of renters want to own a home, but 61% worry they'll never be able to afford it. According to the Urban Institute, the median wealth gap between renters and homeowners is at an all-time high of almost $400,000. While that's a significant number, renting can also be a smart way to build wealth if you follow some guidelines. This podcast will review the rent versus own debate, so you can consider the pros and cons of each side of homeownership. I've been a renter and a homeowner, and I'll discuss how each option could make you wealthier over the long run. Welcome back, everyone. I appreciate you joining me for Money Girl episode 894. I'm Laura Adams, an award-winning author, on-camera spokesperson, money speaker, founder of The Money Stack, that's my Substack newsletter, and host of Money Girl with over 43 million downloads. If you're enjoying the free content we love creating for you here, take a moment to rate and review the show. We really appreciate it. We read all of your reviews. And if you've got a question about money, leave it on our voicemail at 302-364-0308. We love getting your questions and hearing your voice. And if you tell me I can use it on the show, I will. And you can also leave a message and tell me not to use it on the show. You can also visit lauradadams.com to send me an email. And that's also where you can learn more about my books, courses, and subscribe to the free Money Stack newsletter. All right, so let's get into the rent versus own debate. We'll start out by talking about how renting a home can make you wealthier first. While homeownership does have many benefits that I'm going to talk about, renters also have advantages that they can use to improve their financial lives. If you rent your home, I'm going to go through 4 ways that signing a lease instead of a mortgage could make you wealthier over the long term. Number 1 is having more flexibility. Homes for rent come in all shapes and sizes. You know, you can find sprawling single-family houses on acreage out in the country or a high-rise studio apartment in the city. You know, no matter what you're looking for, no matter where you want to live, you're going to find homeowners and property management companies who have various properties that you can choose from. Renters get the flexibility to relocate for work or for family needs more easily than homeowners. Landlords typically require a 12-month lease, but you may also have the option to commit to a shorter term or to pay rent monthly. And if you have to break the lease, it may be something like paying 1 or 2 months of rent in order to get out of the lease early. Being able to pick up and go for your company or to take a higher paying job in another city or state could go a long way toward improving your wealth if it increases your income. And if you're a homeowner, you typically can't move until you sell the property or find a reliable tenant to help you pay the mortgage. Depending on the state of the housing market and the desirability of your home at the time you want to relocate, selling it could be a winning or a losing proposition. When I owned a home in Central Florida many years ago and decided to move cross-country to California for work, we decided to keep our home and to rent it out. You know, the market was good. We knew that we could get a tenant, but the market certainly changed while we were away from Florida, and we went through the recession of 2008, which I'll talk more about, and the value of the home decreased significantly. We were able to hold on to it and to sell it later. I think we probably broke even on it. But, you know, it really depends on what's going on in the housing market when you may need to make a move. So that's just one thing to consider. You're going to have flexibility, but it also will depend on what's going on in the market. The second way that renters can build wealth is paying less upfront. So this is another pro of renting, is not having significant upfront costs compared to buying a home. My husband and I recently bought a new home, and, you know, going through all of those expenses and everything that you have to pay, It's a lot. Renters typically must pay a security deposit for potential damages and maybe your last month's rent. Plus, there could be additional fees for things like a credit check, deposit, or renting a washer and dryer. And while those expenses certainly add up, they're much less than what you typically need for a home down payment, which is going to be at a minimum 3% of the purchase price. Depending on your lender and your financial situation, you may be required to put down at least 10%. We put down 20% because that comes with some benefits. But typically, I would say that 3 to 10% down payment range is what is most common. For instance, if you buy a home for $500,000, you may need to pay $50,000 for a 10% down payment and then borrow the remaining $450,000. Homeowners must also pay a long list of closing costs on top of that down payment. So these are things for services like your mortgage underwriting. So whether you go through a mortgage company or a broker, they're going to charge a fee for their services. An appraisal, the company that lends you the money is going to want to know that the property is of the price or near the price that you're willing to pay. Survey may be required depending on the property. You typically are going to need a home inspector. You have to pay a closing agent or a closing attorney. You have to pay to have your new deed recorded in the local offices. There are property taxes that are prorated and prepaid owner's insurance that you typically have to pay a year in advance and more depending on the customs in your local area. In addition, furnishing a rental might cost less than buying a home, depending on the square footage of the property and, what you already own. Plus, doing upgrades and renovations are costly endeavors that are not allowed, in most rental properties. But they can be one of the first things you think about when buying a home. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now, is going through and paying for a lot of renovations on a property that we bought. And, that's something that you just don't think about when you're a renter. You're not tempted by putting a lot of money into the rental property. So the bottom line is that keeping more of your cash as a renter may allow you to invest more in a workplace retirement plan, an individual IRA, or a brokerage account. Investing regularly and sooner rather than later could allow you to grow a larger nest egg than you could as a cash-strapped homeowner. You've probably heard the term being house rich and cash poor. This is a common struggle for many people who choose to buy a home. You stretch your budget thin, and then it's difficult or even impossible to free up any extra money to save for emergencies, much less to invest for retirement. All right, the third way that renting could make you wealthier is being insulated from market downturns. Renters can stay protected from potential downturns like we saw in the Great Recession of 2008 that I mentioned earlier. That's when a big real estate bubble popped. Overinflated housing prices reached an unsustainable level, and they quickly plummeted. Renters may even come out ahead if rents go down when the economy struggles. While the average U.S. rent for a two-bedroom apartment climbed significantly in 2021, rents have softened a bit in many parts of the country. However, they are still considerably higher than they were before the pandemic. So there's no guarantee that rents will be more affordable than buying a home when the economy gets in trouble. The fourth way that renting can be a benefit is that you could be paying less per month in some areas. Where you live is a huge factor in whether renting or owning a home will be cheaper or maybe, more advantageous for you. But no matter what, renters get to skip many expenses that homeowners can't avoid. Landlords are usually responsible for all interior and exterior upkeep on their property. In other words, if you're a renter and the air conditioner stops working or all of a sudden you see water dripping from the ceiling, you're going to be relieved that the cost won't have to come out of your budget. In addition to skipping repair expenses, renters save time when a repair isn't theirs. Homeowners have to do a lot of work when it comes to, repairs and upkeep. You've got to research the right professional, request bids, manage any insurance claims, and, you're taking time away from work to manage these property repairs. All right, now let's talk about how owning a home, let's look at some of the financial benefits of getting a mortgage and owning a home instead of renting one. Number one is building equity. And you probably know that equity is the difference between your property's market value and what you owe on it. For instance, if your home appraises for $500,000 and your mortgage balance is $450,000, you have $50,000 in home equity. Now, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, each payment is made up of principal and interest in amounts that change over time. Each monthly payment helps you get a little wealthier by reducing your outstanding mortgage balance by a slightly larger amount. This is a process known as amortization. So every amortizing mortgage payment allows you to own slightly more of your home and owe slightly less to your lender. However, be aware that there are home loans that don't amortize, such as interest-only mortgages. The big benefit of building home equity is that you can eventually cash it out by selling your home. You can also tap a portion of your equity by getting a home equity line of credit or a HELOC. You could get a home equity loan or do a cash out refinance or even a reverse mortgage if you're over age 62. The second way that homeowners can build wealth is by having appreciation. If you buy a home for $500,000 and the value increases to $575,000 over time, you automatically have $75,000 of additional equity. And that's on top of the equity that I just mentioned that you build by paying off an amortizing fixed-rate mortgage. Historically, real estate has been an excellent long-term investment. The U.S. year-over-year index from 1992 to 2004 is 4.63%, and it reached an all-time high of 19% in July 2021, when the housing market was going crazy. But we had a record low of negative 10.5% in November 2008. So home prices were down 10%, almost 11% during the Great Recession in many areas. And this is an average index. So you likely took an upsetting loss if you bought a home in 2007 and had to sell it in 2008. However, home values go up more than they go down over the long term, which is a powerful way to build wealth. So owning real estate allows you to grow richer from price appreciation, paying down an amortizing mortgage, or both. But there's no guarantee that a home's value will increase or appreciate as quickly as you'd like. However, you do have a guarantee that paying rent is an out-of-pocket expense that you'll never get back. The third way homeowners benefit is by cutting their taxes. So to encourage homeownership, the federal government created various tax breaks to sweeten the deal. I'm going to go through some expenses that are tax deductible when you itemize deductions on your tax return. One is your mortgage interest. It's tax deductible on up to $750,000 of debt on a primary or secondary residence for taxpayers who file jointly, or half of that, $375,000 if you file taxes as a single. Your home equity loan interest is also tax deductible, and it's included in that $750,000 limit when you use the funds to buy, build, or improve your property. Now, you can get a home equity line of credit or a home equity loan and use it for personal reasons not related to your home. But if you do that, you're not eligible to deduct the interest that you pay on that money. Also, mortgage points. These are upfront charges and prepaid interest that you pay to reduce a mortgage's interest rate. If you're eligible to deduct your mortgage interest, any points that you pay are likely also tax deductible. And property taxes, these are tax deductible for up to $10,000 for joint filers, or half of that, $5,000 for singles. And that limit includes the total of your state, local, and real estate taxes. Some states like Florida and California give homeowners a homestead exemption, which reduces their property taxes and typically offers some legal protections for those properties. In addition to these tax-deductible expenses, there are other tax credits that may be available for homes that will change from year to year. But you also get another huge tax break if you lived in your primary home for at least 2 of the previous 5 years before selling it, which is called the capital gains tax exclusion. It allows you to avoid tax on up to $500,000 of profit on that property, or half that amount, $250,000, if you're a single taxpayer. So all these tax incentives are fantastic. However, many costs of homeownership, like homeowners insurance, homeowners association dues, maintenance, repairs, and local tax assessments, are not tax deductible. Renters don't get any housing-related tax deductions. Rent is never tax deductible, but renters typically don't have any required expenses either, except perhaps renter's insurance in some cases. And even if it's not required, I definitely recommend that every renter purchase renter's insurance. It is an affordable policy. It gives you a lot of coverage for very little cost. It costs an average of $170 per year. So if you're renting and you don't have a renter's policy, I would put that on your list of things to do this year. All right, and the fourth way that owners can grow wealthier is by paying less per month in some areas. So another way buying a home can make you wealthier is by borrowing at a relatively low rate. A 30-year fixed-rate mortgage currently costs about 7% APR. Now, while that is more than double the rate to buy a home before the pandemic, it still looks great compared to paying nearly 19% in 1981 or 11% in 1990. So we have to remember that rates, historically are still relatively low. And those lower interest rates make owning a home cheaper than renting, even with additional costs like homeowners insurance and property taxes. Of course, that isn't always going to be true in every city, especially large, expensive cities like New York and San Francisco, where home prices are notoriously high. And speaking of high prices, an often overlooked benefit of owning a home is that it's like a hedge against inflation when you have a fixed-rate mortgage. That's because your payment is locked in for the term of your loan, like 15 or 30 years, no matter what happens to interest rates or the economy. Rents may increase during inflationary periods, like we've seen the last few years, but a fixed mortgage can't increase. So the big question is, should you rent or should you own a home? And like many issues in personal finance, the answer is it depends. Your financial situation, goals, and lifestyle are unique. So there is no right or wrong answer. Also, there isn't a cut and dried way to compare the cost of renting to the cost of owning a home. You really just have to do your homework and look at what else is out there. If you're thinking about renting, find out what would it cost to buy a home that you would be happy in. If you could do that for cheaper or less, that may, really make a big difference for you. In addition, non-financial considerations always come into play. They may tip the scales for you in either direction of owning or renting. For instance, the pride of owning a home is something many people want to experience. You may really yearn to have your own land, plant your own garden, or have a place to remodel that's very unique to you and how you want to decorate it. However, getting a mortgage is a big commitment, and it's got to fit your financial goals, like investing for retirement and paying down debt. Just because you qualify for a mortgage doesn't mean homeownership is right for you. A good rule of thumb is to never buy a home unless you're sure you'll live there for at least 5 years. That's because you never know how long it could take to sell a home if needed. And real estate transactions come with expenses for buyers as well as for the sellers. Renting can allow you to avoid the cost and hassle of property maintenance and repairs. Some apartments offer amazing on-site services and amenities. When I was renting in the Bay Area and in Austin, Texas, we had a 24/7 concierge, dry cleaning pickup, a clubhouse, pool, gym, guest suite, and theater. If you use all those amenities regularly, consider what they'd cost if you didn't rent. If renting saves money and reduces stress so you can accomplish your financial objectives, it may make you wealthier in the long run. The key is investing savings that you would have spent on a home. Using your additional discretionary income wisely and investing the savings can certainly help you build wealth. But if buying a home has more advantages and you're willing to put down some roots, owning an affordable home is a terrific goal. That's all for now. I'll talk to you soon. Until then, here's to living a richer life. Money Girl is a quick and dirty tips podcast, and we have a terrific team I want to thank. Steve Rickyberg audio engineers the show. Brandon Gachis is our director of podcast. Holly Hutchins is our digital operations specialist. Morgan Christensen is our advertising operations specialist. Davina Tomlin is our marketing and publicity associate. And Nathaniel Hoops is our marketing contractor.